The woman from Human Resources looked at me with a smirk that could freeze water. She told me that junior employees do not negotiate their salaries. I had just handed her a folder packed with evidence showing how I saved our biggest client account. Instead of listening, she dismissed my hard work like it was trash. My daily life at the firm was a nightmare of manual labor. While my supervisor Nolan spent his afternoons playing golf or bragging on social media, I stayed late. Our internal infrastructure was built on broken databases that Toby from the technology team had abandoned years ago. I spent my nights fixing errors that should have been automated. After the insulting rejection from Human Resources, my attitude shifted completely. I spent my evenings searching for alternative opportunities rather than trying to fix a company that hated me. I looked at our list of clients, focusing on those who suffered most from our bad software. One name stood out above the rest, a giant shipping corporation called Apex Prime Logistics. An email arrived on a Tuesday from Raymond, the director of systems at Apex Prime Logistics. He noticed my name on several system patches and wanted to discuss an open role. I used a day of paid time off to meet him at their beautiful corporate headquarters. He offered me a coffee that tasted better than anything in our cheap break room. Raymond did not hide the frustration his company felt toward my current employer. He explained that their databases were failing and they needed someone who understood the dirty details. He offered me a position as a senior systems auditor with double my current pay. The role would start right before their massive annual vendor review of my current firm. I accepted the offer but kept my plans completely secret. For 2 weeks, I lived a double life as a quiet worker by day and a digital investigator by night. I compiled lists of every shortcut, every expired security certificate, and every lazy mistake my company made. I knew exactly where all the technical errors were buried because I had tried to fix them. The supervisor Nolan continued to ignore my presence, assuming I was just a harmless assistant. He handed me basic tasks while I secretly mapped out the entire infrastructure for Apex Prime Logistics. I watched Human Resources Coordinator Claire walk past my desk without making eye contact. They had no idea that I was preparing a digital report that would destroy their reputation. I submitted my formal resignation on a quiet Wednesday morning. I sent the message through the portal, and Claire did not even schedule an exit interview. Nolan strolled to my desk to tell me that I would regret leaving because the outside world was tough. I smiled at him because I knew I would see him again very soon. On Monday morning, I walked back into the very same building with a completely different attitude. I was no longer a junior employee carrying a cheap lunch bag. I wore a professional dark blue blazer and carried a guest badge that granted me access to the executive floors. The security guard did not recognize me, but the receptionist gasped. The elevator doors opened and I saw the immediate panic on the faces of my former co-workers. 2 database engineers stared at me in disbelief as I walked toward the main conference room. Claire stood outside the room holding her water bottle, her face turning pale when she saw my title. I was the lead representative for Apex Prime Logistics. Inside the glass room, the vice president of operations Vance stood up so fast he spilled his coffee. He stammered a greeting and asked why I was attending the vendor review. I sat down at the head of the conference table and opened my laptop. I informed him that I was leading the investigation into their security compliance. The contract allowed Apex Prime Logistics to audit all vendor systems going back 12 months. I showed them a presentation detailing every critical error they had ignored for the past year. I highlighted expired security clearances and terrible database management that exposed client data to the public. The executives sat in total silence as my presentation revealed their laziness. The biggest blow came when I displayed an unencrypted spreadsheet containing shared passwords on a public server. Vance tried to argue that this file was temporary and probably created by an irresponsible junior analyst. I looked him dead in the eye and told him that the author of the file was actually me. The room became completely silent as they realized their mistake. By the end of the afternoon, Apex Prime Logistics officially suspended all payments to my former employer. The corporate office descended into absolute chaos as executives panicked and tried to contact technicians for answers. I left the building feeling lighter than I had in years. The people who treated me like dirt were now drowning in their own incompetence. The next morning, my inbox was flooded with desperate messages from directors who used to ignore me. They asked if I would consider a short contract to help them fix the very problems I discovered. I replied that my consulting fee was 5 times my old salary, paid up front. They did not reply, but I knew they had no other options. I spent my weekend reviewing messages from talented former co-workers who wanted to escape the sinking ship. I was now building a new compliance team at Apex Prime Logistics, and I needed reliable people. The very colleagues who never looked at me were now begging me for employment. I offered roles to the hard workers and ignored the rest. A week later, Apex Prime Logistics officially terminated their agreement with my former employer due to severe compliance failures. Nolan updated his resume online, and Claire was summoned to a final meeting regarding her department. She walked into the conference room where I sat at the table with the termination documents. She realized that she had to face me. I slid the recommendation for her dismissal across the table without saying a single word. She looked at the paper with trembling hands as she realized her career at the firm was over. I reminded her that while junior staff do not negotiate, directors certainly do. If you enjoyed this story of corporate justice, please hit the subscribe button today.